Everyone, and welcome again to J.K. Michael's Knowledge Series. So we're going to look at our personal budget worksheet. Now, like I said, there are tools that can help us to be able to achieve all of these things, right? Like you need a budget, like I showed you, right? But if you're not willing to pay these amounts, then you can run this using spreadsheet. I think spreadsheet allows us to be able to do very simple calculations, right? Now we have our income. Now remember when I spoke about categories, this is our income category. Now you have your salary, which is going to be your daily amount. Your monthly or annual amount is usually fixed. You have partner salary if you want to do a household planning, which is both you and every other person that's earning, right? Like your wife, right? Okay. And then we have dividends. Now, dividends generally are not regular. Even when your investments pay regular dividends, the amount they pay may not be regular. And then things like rental income generally tend to be regular, but they may not be very regular in terms of time. So they're regular in terms of amount, but then may come in January, may come in December, may come in maybe if the people are supposed to pay in January, maybe plus minus 3 months, especially real estate rental, right? As even when if you have that's for if you have even good customers that are timely in their payments, plus minus 3 months, right? Okay, so rental income might not be as stable or is semi-stable, right? Now, if we have all of this, but in this case, I'm going to assume that all of these are what we will have in January, right? Or to extend it, we can assume that this is just a monthly budget. We're assuming that these are regular so that we know that we have what 1.2 million as our budget. If it's irregular, then of course you want to know how you can plan and make adjustment. But I'm going to assume that all of these are regular in a month, giving me a total of 1.2 million when I saw them up. Good. Now, I'll look at our expense category. We have about 6 or 7 expense category. Look at housing and living. We have rent, mortgage, electricity, water, sewer, right? And other kinds of utilities around the house. When we sum them, it comes to 348,000. We have things like what? Regular payments, and look at the total, 112,000. Student loans, credit cards, other loan payments, health insurance, car, home insurance, life insurance, childcare. These are regular payments we must make. We have things like food expenses. Good old food takes 120, or we plan. Don't forget, the budget is a statement of planning. Personal expenses takes about 97%, 97,000, sorry, which is personal care, hair, nail care, clothing, doctors and dentists, prescription, laundry, dry clean, recreation and travel, and others, right? You can specify what other expenses are. And then transportation expenses, when you use your car, your fueling expense, 50,000, gas, bus and taxi and train taking 15,000, parking taking 5,000, others 5,000. So these are our total transportation expense. And then we have miscellaneous, like church, charity. Now, everything here, charity 1, charity 2, and so on and so forth, right? Now, all of these are going to total 90,000, right? Now, this is going to be our total expenditure. If this is our total expenditure, then total income minus expenditure, in this case, what we plan for is that what? 1.2 million, don't forget this, 1.2 million, right? These are our total expenses, right? To be able to get this figure we have here, we're going to take our 1.2 million, which is our income, which is our planned income, and take this amount. So this is it, right? So this is our planned income, and this is our planned expense, which is 842. This is here. We subtract it, and then our budget or saving will be 358,000, which is this, right? Now, when we multiply this by 12, we get how much we expect to save in a year. So this is our planning. We've been able to estimate right, what we expect. But actuals do not necessarily respect our budget, right? Actuals do not necessarily respect our budget. But before we go there, and this variance, I want you to understand this variance. Please don't pay attention to it now. This is not the time for this to kick in, right? Variance is simply actual minus budget, and we use it to be able to compute how well we are achieving our budget, right? But let's go on and let's do a few things. Let's put in our weekly spend. We're going to assume that we're going to be spending over a period of 4 weeks, which would make 1 month, right? And then we have this sheet, data sheet, showing how much we spend in a day. So I'm going to just take this and copy this, my per day spend, and put it in week one, control week 2, week 3, and week 4. I'm using the control to hold down these buttons so that when I paste this, it will paste into everything. When I paste this, it will paste into everything. I think I'm going to paste just the values, right? It will paste into everything. And if I copy and then I paste it down to Sunday, right? This is what my living expenses are. I'm assuming that I'm going to be spending this on a daily basis. Let me see how well that worked. On week 2, you can see week 2, week 3, and week 4 carried exactly the same thing, right? Week 5 is the only thing, right? But we didn't include that. So week 4, week 3, week 2 have carried the same thing, right? So I think we are doing the right thing. Let's continue. Regular payments, sheet 11. Let's collect data for regular payments. Let's collect data for regular payments. Now, from student loan down to order, we copy. Now we come back here, we hold our control key, do 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? For regular payment, from student loan down, we paste, right? And then we copy and we pull this in. Okay, now for food expenses, we repeat the same thing. From groceries down to orders, we copy. We hold this down with the control key, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, this is, of course, assuming that our spends happen with a daily, that we are tracking our spends on a daily basis, right? And this is what it's giving us over the course of a whole week. Let's look at personal expenses. We'll go back to sheet 11. Our personal expenses broken down towards the whole year. We come into week 1, we use our control sheets or control key and log down to week 4, and then we paste. And then we copy, shift, and then we lock this in, right? Okay. And then we have transportation, sheet 11. We have transportation. We copy, and then go into week 1, control week 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then we paste this, distribute this across. Okay, I should have deleted this because we'd have to run our totals eventually, right? And then we of course have miscellaneous, right? Which will be every other thing. And then we'll copy this. And then we go back here and then we use our control 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we paste our data. And then this is it, right? So we copy this. Now, one thing you will notice is this. Let me delete this. I think one thing you will notice is this. This has summed up our miscellaneous. But to be able to get out our total expenses, then everything, right? The subtotals, 12,000 plus 4,6 plus 5,001, 4,2 plus this, plus this, and this is summed to give us our total expenses. And since we use the same data, of course, you can see that it is distributed. Now, let's get our totals, our grant totals. Now, so all what we spent in each category will give us would sum up our total values. Sorry, hold on. Make sure that I have. Okay, let me break out this thing and make sure that all the data entered every of the sheets. Okay, yes, it happened the way we planned. Okay, happened the way we planned. Now let's run the totals. Let's do week 1, control week 2, 3, and 4, and let's sum up. Now, we want to do a sum across of all of our expenditure. So the total within a week is going to be this. And then when we add all of these up, okay, now there's a bit of a problem here. Okay, so it's worked it out. 9,000, which is the sum of this. Okay. Sum of this. All right. So what we are working out is our monthly expenses, right? And then this is summing everything down. And then we would also work out the sum of all of this. And then we'll pull this down. Okay, so it's adjusted, right, into the right amount. And then we have to sum all of this down. Sorry, let me make sure that my, oh, okay, wasn't complete. Sorry, let me confirm the accuracy by checking how complete it is. It should move from Monday into Saturday. Okay. Well, my sheet is actually very big for the screen. So let me correct that so that you can see what I'm doing. So this should have included, I think I should allow show ribbon so that I can be able to see, have perspective. Yes. Perspective, importance. Let me reduce this so that it becomes more visible. Okay, now that said, now let's do this properly. Now we have some brackets and then take it from Monday down to Saturday, 62,000, and pull this down. Oh, well. Okay, repeat the same for this. Then we'll pull this down. Okay. Okay. Corrected itself. For our food expenses, take from Monday down to Saturday. We'll pull this down. It doesn't adjust very well, but then we'll come back and then we'll hit enter. Right now, what's happening is because I have multiple sheets lined up making this calculation. That's why it's not registering until I hit enter again, right? Okay, now we have sum for these personal care expenses, 3,000. We pull this down. Then we hit. Okay, correct. And then finally, or second to last, we have sum of transportation. And then finally, we have miscellaneous. Now, when we hit this down, our miscellaneous totals, okay, 20,750. And you can see our total expenses for the whole month of January comes down to 27,231,000, right, for per week, right? Now, just to make this simple, this is our total for week 1, right? But as you can see, in week 2, it's the same thing in week 3, it's the same thing in week 4, it's the same thing. We worked on a 4-week schedule. It's the same thing across the 4 weeks. So what we can do can be to just sum everything, or just for simplicity's sake, let's do our total January. So let's say call this January total expenses. And this is the data we're going to push down to our, this is the data we're going to push down to our, this is the data we're going to push down to our final statement, right? We're going to take this and multiply by 4. We're going to take this, use this tool, and then we're going to multiply this by 4. Everything multiplied by 4 to be able to reflect 4 weeks. And that's the information we will transfer across. Multiplied by 4, this 250,000. Multiplied by 4. I mean, everything multiplied by 4 would give us our total value, right? And this is it. So what we want to do is we will take these values down to, or multiply by 4, we get what the total of January, which will be the equivalent of adding up week 1, week 2, week 3. These are our weekly spend. So we'll multiply by 4 to get the monthly spend. So let us take these figures and let us transfer them to our budget. Now, when I come to my personal budget, right? And then these are my rental figures. This is my actual figures. Okay. So these are my actual figures. I'm going to explain the other things that are changing now. These are my actual figures. Now, let us assume that I really do get the same income that I expect. 500,000, 350,000, 250,000, and then a rental income of 100,000. thousand. So everything has come out. So in terms of income, I don't have a variance because when I subtract my budget from my actual, well, I got everything I expect. So my variance is zilch. Now I'm going to solve for the others, right? But let's fix in our actuals. Let's look at our regular payments. What did we pay on regular basis? Let's transfer from student loans down to this. Now personal budget, right? From student loans. Okay. Let me undo this, right? So I don't transfer. Control Z, right? So let me transfer without the, okay, great. So this 129. You can clearly see here that I have moved above my budget. I paid more in terms of regular payments than I planned to pay. Let me see if I'll be rescued by food. Take these three. My expenditure in food, would it be better or worse than I planned? Well, we copy, put this down. 144,000. Well, in actual sense, I did not do very well with respect to food. Let's look at personal expenses. Personal expenses. Personal expenses. I put that in. Okay, 124,000. Oh my God. Did not do very well there. 97 against 127. Then let's look at my transportation expenses. My transportation expenses, I fixed this in. Oh, I think I did not do this well. Control Z. Right, transportation expenses, auto. Let's look at this week one. Okay, there's something above transportation expenses. So let's put that in. Transportation expenses. Okay, so that comes to 84,000, right? 84,000 as transportation expenses. Again, I spent more than I planned for. And then last but not the least, we have our gifts and our miscellaneous. Hopefully, this would save us. Right. 83,000. Okay, so that this is less than what we planned. We planned to spend 90. We've been able to save about 7,000. And so when we hit this together, we can see that our total expenses was higher. And so when you look at this, if we do our income, which is 1.2 million, our income, which is 1.2 million, minus our expenses, which came to almost 1,900,000, our total expenses, then we saved 274,000. This is total expenses will sum up all the expenses, as you can see, right? This came up to 274,000. This is the savings we have, the surplus, right? So in this case, we have 1.2 million. And then what we actually spent for the month of January was this. So if we were to do the budget or the surplus, we have this 274. And then, of course, what this means is that if we are going to use these rates, we can only be able to save or to invest on an annual basis 3.28 million. Now, the next thing we want to do is look for where we performed good or where we did not perform very well. Now, the formula for this is for variance is actual minus budget. And if you see 0, what it means is that you achieved all your goals. Control Z. You achieved all your goals, actual minus budget. Now, let's try that for the other expenses. We achieved our income goals. Let's look at our budget goals. Actual minus budget, you can see 0, meaning we did quite well. But look at the rest. So if you see a positive figure, what it means is that we performed above the budget. If you see a negative figure, right, we overspent. So positive figure means we spent under our budget. So look at this here. Sorry, positive figure in this case means we spent actually above the budget. How? Sorry, variance is actually actual minus budget. So everywhere you see this, what it means is, yeah. All right, so variance actually means actual or budget minus actual, which is B minus A, right? And then, so you can see our budget minus our actual being 0. It means that in terms of income, we achieved all our goals. We achieved all our income goals, right? And that is why you can see that budget minus actual is 0, right? We achieved our goals in terms of income. So budget minus actual is 0. Let me do something. Let me copy this formatting. Okay. So budget minus actual is 0, right? And you can see in this case again, budget minus actual is 0. So this is to look for where we performed well in the budget and where we did not perform very well. Now let's look at our expenditure. Let's look at our performance with respect to expenditure. Again, we have budget minus actual. 0, meaning, okay, we paid exactly what we expected for rent and mortgage. But let's look at the other performances. Oh, you see quite some negatives here. But what this means is that, well, we didn't quite meet what we wanted in this area. So if you see a negative value, it means that we spent above the budget. So in electricity, in gas and heating, in household repairs, we spent above the budget, right? But in these areas, we made savings, we spent less than the budget. But in these areas, we spent exactly where there is no variance. You can see like this area, we spent exactly according to the budget. So that you can see, so if according to the budget is what? Sorry, undo, Control Z. According to the budget, you'd see nothing, no variance whatsoever, because your budget and your actual figures are the same. Negative means you overspent, spent over the budget. Positive means you underspent, you were within or below the budget. Now, let's do for regular payments, right? Budget minus actual. Again, there is no variance here. Let's come down. The same rule applies. Negative, while generally we did very well with respect to regular payments, but that's primarily because they are regular, right? But you can see with credit cards, we went above the budget by 15,000. And then in terms of others, whatever that means, right? We find ourselves being above the budget by 2,000, right? Not very good, Accumulate 13,500 overspend and 17,000 overspend here. Now, this is the budget being used as a monitoring tool. Remember, I said we have analysis, which is breaking down into categories. We have planning, which is determining our budget, how we intend to spend. We have monitoring and controlling and communicating. So we're monitoring and controlling now, budget minus actual. And you can see these are the areas where we found ourselves being over budget. In this case, we overspent by 24,000, right? And you can see 120 to 144, that is what? 24,000 in variance, negative variance, right? And then you have again, budget minus actual, which is what? 2,000. Let's push this down. Again, 27,000. 97 against 124,500. We overspent by 27,500. Now let's do the same for transportation and other expenses. Budget minus actual. So you can see basically we are not meeting our spending goals in a lot of areas. We are overspending on 12, we're overspending on 1, right? 12 and 1, right? Our positive spend is 3,000, right? So you can see in this case we spent under budget, right? Everything sums up to 9,000. So 75 plus 9 is what will give us 85. So we budgeted 75 and then we ended up spending 84,000, which is a variance of 9,000. Then last but not the least, we have what? Our miscellaneous expenses, budget minus actual, right? To give us a -2. Then when we sum this down, it comes to a -7,000, between 90 to 70, between 90 to 83,000, while we gained 7,000, which is actually very good, right? We were able to save 7,000 the first time throughout the period, right? We have been able to, we only made savings here. Did we make savings anywhere else? I don't think so. General savings, no, we did not. When we sum up our total variance, our total variance comes to largely a -84,000. So we are 84,000 above the budget. We spent 84,000 above our budget. And that is why what we expected to cost us 842 ended up costing us 926,000. So we're going to take this again and then do our variance. So we have a variance of what? Total income minus total expenses. Well, this will not work here, right? Because, sorry, this is analysis of variance. It's not income and total expenses. Again, right? And then finally, let's see percentage variance. Now, percentage variance would simply be budget minus actual. All over actual expressed as a percentage. So this is actually 0%, 0%, 0%. This is quite a challenge, right? And then we have what? Budget minus actual over budget, sorry. So percentage variance is the percentage at which we met or did not meet our goals. Now it's clear to see that the variance is 0, which is going to be budget minus actual, right? The basis is what? The budget, right? In all of this would have what? A variance of 0, right? But when we come here, we can see budget minus actual with our budgets being the basis. 0%. Okay, let's see the rest. Okay. So you see, right, we were behind. So this is the percentage at which we superseded our budget. Well, in this case, we can simply repeat the formula: budget minus actual over the budget, right? Generally, we had what? A 4% variance, right? Let's repeat that here. We have budget minus actual over budget, expressed as a percentage. Ignore the division error, right? Okay, take this off, right? Right, so these were areas where we didn't have a variance, but here we had variance of 38%. And then if we repeated this here, budget minus actual divided by budget, you can see that it comes down to a 15% variance altogether. Repeat the same thing for food expenses, which will be budget minus actual based on the budget. I say 15% overspend, right? Remove this. And then let's see budget minus actual divided by budget, which is our basis for comparison. It's a 20% overspend, right? All in all. And then we have, again, budget minus actual divided by actual, divided by budget. Sorry, the budget is supposed to be the basis. Budget is our basis, right? So we take this down, remove the div error. We have budget minus actual divided by budget gives us a 28% variance in the end. We have, again, budget minus actual over actual gives us a 24. And then we have budget minus actual over budget. That's a 12% variance. And then finally, we have budget minus actual divided by budget gives us 20% percentage variance. Take out the error. And then we have budget minus actual. In this case, we'll see a positive based on the budget. It's a positive 8% savings. So negative means overspend. Positive means savings, right? And when we repeat this down, budget minus actual divided by budget, and you see altogether we were 10%, we overspent. Our total expenses was about 10% greater than our budget. And you can see 84,000, but we had a variance of what? 842, but we have a variance of 84,000, which corresponds with what? A 10%. A 10% overspend, right? And that is that. Now, so what we have as our savings is 247,000 as our income. Now, let us assume we decided our goal was to have 358, but we ended up with 247, not so bad. Now, if we were to take this and put this into our net worth statement, then we will simply go into our assets, right? And then probably in our bank account would say what? 200 and let me remember what that was. What was the figure actually? Let's get back. Let's look at the figure. We had 274,000. So when we go back to our net worth statement, we want to put it in our savings account. So we'll say what? We'll add 274,000 as our additional assets, and it has increased the value of our savings account and our general assets to 574,000, right? And you can see where that feeds off. 5.74, we have increased the money, right? Now our total assets comes to 99,794, right? 99,794. Let's see how that matches. 99,794, right? Liabilities remained the same. So we have what? 71,494,000. So this is our new net worth figure. If you don't understand what I've done here, make sure you watch the net worth, the video on net worth, right? And then this is what 71,494,000, right? This is our new net worth. Now let's update that in our progress sheet, right? Our new net worth, oh, okay. Now let's add 124. So what we did, our net worth, I cannot do it here because I have increased the money when I was giving examples. But let's assume that this 120 million, we add 274,000. So we take this figure and then we add 274,000, which is what we added to the net worth figure, right? And you can see that what we did is that we've added what our new net worth is this, and this is what we added, 274,000. We will say, okay, increase in savings account due to cash from increase in our savings account due to savings from the month of January, right? So we would see an increase of what? 274 in our summary and dashboard. You can see that, right? We've been able to move from 121 million to 121 274,000, which is an improvement in this case. So thank you very much for being with us, right? And I think I've been able to show you the connection between your income statement and your statement of net worth. I hope you enjoyed this, and I look forward to seeing you with us again in subsequent videos. Now, to be able to cap up these things, we're going to treat about 4 other topics that would help you to be able to save, or that will help you to be able to build wealth. Now, the first topic we will talk about is what you call fixed income, or talk about fixed income, right? Fixed income options for investing. We're also going to talk about shares and equity, how to be able to purchase shares, and what should be the logic we should employ in purchasing shares. And then the third thing we're going to talk about is diversification. We're going to talk about how to diversify our investment so that we're not overexposed to risk in any given area. And last but not the least, we're going to talk about how to deal with taxes, right? Okay, so let me just create a basic summary so you know what to expect over the next 4 videos, right? So the first thing we're going to deal with will be what? Fixed income investment. Now, these are generally safe and lower risk. Now we have number 2, we have what? Investment in stocks and equity, right? Now these is medium to high risk. And then we're going to talk about diversification, which is going to be your tool for protection against loss of value. And then finally, we're going to talk about tax, managing taxes, which is also protection against loss of portfolio value. And this brings us to the end of this class. Thank you very much. I look forward to seeing you in our next classes. Bye for now.